You're watching NewsX. My name is Vineet. Malhotra. China has recalled its teachers from the Karachi University weeks after the Karachi blasts that killed 3 Chinese women. This happens despite Bilawal Bhutto's assurance to Wang Yi that they will increase the security of these Chinese nationals. On the other hand, Shehbaz Sharif has spoken to Chinese Premier after mulling abolishing the CPEC. Imran Khan, on the other hand, now claims that the US has invaded Pakistan as Bhutto is set to visit the United States on Blinken's invitation. So will the United States now be the next patsy? What are the implications of this Pak-China breakup, and is the CPEC going to in fact wither away as little as energy as much as it started with? We'll talk about this with our guest. Joining me on the platform is Ambassador Deepak Vora, former diplomat. Professor Madhav Nalapat, editorial director of the Sunday Guardian, is also here with us. Major General Dhruv Katoch, strategic and global affairs expert, director of India Foundation. Last but by no means the least, Mr. Vijay Kranti, China and foreign affairs expert, is also joining us on the program. Professor Nalapat, starting with you, it's fair on China's behest to withdraw its people from the country of Pakistan. But in your opinion, sir, what kind of a bearing, if any, will this have on the ambitious project, the CPEC between China and Pakistan? Is that going to bear the brunt for Pakistan's incompetence? All right, Professor Nalapat is yet to join us. I'm going to take the same question to Ambassador Deepak Vora. Ambassador Vora, if you were able to hear my question, or should I repeat it, sir?
I can hear you loud and clear. Thank you very much. Always an honor, Mr. Malhotra, to be with a Foreign Service kid on NewsX, your amazing channel. And then it's not fair to get General Dhruv Katoch and Mr. Vijay Kranti because their knowledge is far superior to mine. So now I feel intimidated by their presence. And Professor Nalapat is there. You want him to answer it, or shall I continue?
No, Deepak.
Continue, sir. Continue, sir.
All right.
Continue, sir.
Well, all right. You've talked about CPEC and the impact that this is going to have, the present relationship between the two countries. Where is it headed? Let me put it to you very bluntly. Communist China does not know how to treat its colonies or quasi-colonies like Pakistan, Sri Lanka or Nepal. I'm not being facetious. United States didn't know it either. But the attractions of America were so strong that many nations willingly became US subsidiaries. With a dozen countries, I believe, have even adopted the American dollar as their own national currency. You know, the American commitment to freedom of the mind and spirit is irresistible. When the Soviet Union imploded, sir, do you recall in 1991, all of its chumchas, with very few exceptions, rushed off to join the American camp. China is different, does not know how to respect smaller nations, treat them with dignity. In America, we used to say that country's credo was my way or the highway. China's is my way or no way. The conflict with Pakistan had to come. We are seeing it, sir. Pakistan has very few friends in the region, east or west. It is trapped in what I call the Chinese rat enclosure, and it cannot get out of it. And therefore, you very rightly said, the signs that we are seeing now, someone saying the CPEC is all rubbish, and the other fellow saying, no, it's a damn good idea. And then everybody from Pakistan rushes off to China. They can't open their mouth without asking the Chinese for permission. We are seeing the beginning of the end of this relationship. How does a country that claims to have invented Islam, i.e. Pakistan, get into bed with a country that is avowedly atheist, doesn't care about religion? This is a contradiction that I'm sure Mr. Vijay Kranti or General Katoch or Mr. Nalapat will explain to me. I have never understood. All I see now is that the honeymoon is coming to an end. China needed a colony, Pakistan needed China. It swapped the United States and its Western benefactors for China. But at the moment, I'm afraid, sir, Pakistan in its relationship with China, forgive the language, is up shit creek without a paddle.
All right, well said. Professor Nalapat, if China is going to exit Pakistan, who's going to run Pakistan?
India.
Look, I'd like to say that I am a little skeptical about China exiting Pakistan, mainly because the links between the PLA and the Pakistan military are very deep. Now, you may have gestures like this, which are essentially good for newspaper headlines and a little cosmetic, that you have this kind of an institute. And of course, under Xi Jinping's time, Xi Jinping is very clear. If you're an ethnic Chinese anywhere in the world, anywhere, whether in the United States or in the UK or in Malaysia or Indonesia or anywhere, you have a responsibility to the Communist Party of China and specifically to the commands of its leadership, and you better do as they say. And regrettably, during his time, Confucius Institutes have become a listening post as well as a disinformation post. So it's an obvious listening post and an obvious disinformation post these days, with the result that this kind of a thing makes great optics. There are many people in the Pentagon even now, far more people in the State Department, many people in the UK who are basically saying, oh, Pakistan is actually a wonderful country. It's a little bit misguided here and there, but actually it's a wonderful country. It's not really completely dominated by the Chinese. And look at this now. They are sending Confucius Institutes out. So this is proof. So they will clutch at any little straw like that. So personally, in my view, this is just a straw. The fact is the deep inroads that the Chinese military in particular has made in Pakistan and the value to them of Pakistan as an effort at containing India, weakening India. As for example, North Korea vis-a-vis Japan is an example of that. And now, quite frankly, they're delighted because NATO is no longer concerned about China. I mean, all these NATO leaders are making a beeline for Beijing to touch the hem of Xi Jinping. And it's all Russia. So they're delighted by that. But so the fact is, in my view, this is optics, and the relationship between China and Pakistan is going to be there for quite some time. But my last point is very clear. It is going to lead to the destruction of Pakistan as a state. You're already seeing that in Sri Lanka. And you're going to see that in Pakistan. It's a poison chalice. You drink from that chalice, the more you drink from it, the surer your end is going to be.
Absolutely. Good points. In fact, General Katoch, if Pakistan goes the Sri Lanka way, there's a lot more to be worried about because, pathologically, Pakistan is quite different from what Sri Lanka is. If all hell breaks loose in Pakistan because of China or the lack of China, then we're looking at a serious problem.
Thank you, Vineet. Vineet, I've heard the comments of both the ambassador and Professor Madhav Nalpat, and both of them are right. Now, the way I have looked at this particular problem is China is not going to leave Pakistan. I mean, they are controlling Pakistan, so the question of their leaving Pakistan doesn't arise. The question is their control over Pakistan is going to get much stronger and much deeper. So the rope which they have got around Pakistan's neck, now that is going to be tightened, and they will steer Pakistan any way they want to. I think the danger lies there. The CPEC I have long maintained is long dead. The CPEC can never go through unless India cooperates. That is a fundamental rule in this. And India is not going to help them with the CPEC, and that internally they are not going to be able to do it. So with their internal disturbances, the CPEC is out. But China will keep trying because it has got its assets in Gilgit-Baltistan and it's got its assets in Gwadar. Now, these are the two areas which China is not going to leave, and there will be additional turmoil as far as Pakistan is concerned. So what China will do now, they will protect their assets in these two key areas, in Gwadar, where they have already isolated themselves, and in Gilgit-Baltistan, where I presume the Pakistan military will be able to help them. But in every other part of Pakistan, I don't think the military establishment has the power to protect every single Chinese, especially against a suicide attack. And the suicide attack which we saw recently, that was not motivated on religion. We have to understand the difference of motivation. For the first time, a female bomber has killed herself for independence. It had nothing to do with Islam. Yeah. And that is a trend which I think they will not be able to stop, and which is going to be the biggest concern. So for India, I'll repeat a point which I had made in your channel, I think maybe last year or sometime. Our biggest danger is not going to be from terrorism or from the Pakistan military. In my view, our danger from internal destability within Pakistan that may result in people in the millions wanting to leave. And the only place they can enter is India. We have to ensure that they are not allowed to come. And we need to prepare for that now. Vineet.
Absolutely. Mr. Kranti, if you can hear me, sir.
Yeah. Yes, sure.
Well, the CPEC is obviously withering away. It's not going well for Pakistan. But how much of a predictable response can be assessed at this point in time when it comes to China? Do they really care about their citizens dying in Pakistan? Because as far as we have judged China, they're more concerned about ruling the world. They will not, let such small hindrances get into their master plan.
See, one thing we should not forget, that Xi Jinping and Communist Party of China, they may have whatever control over their people and propaganda system and police and whatnot, but they are very much afraid of public opinion within China. They are not afraid of opinion in India or America. Once the dead bodies and body bags start moving from Pakistan to China, and if it becomes a trend, I can tell you Xi Jinping, this is the last thing he can really tolerate or he can survive. So he is afraid. And there are more than at least four Confucius Institutes in Pakistan right now which are functioning. And everybody knows what the role of Confucius Institutes is. In the world, I think that in 154 countries, there are Confucius Institutes. 548 university was the last count in 2020, where Confucius Institutes are functioning. 1,000 and I think 200 schools across the world where these schools are functioning, and Chinese teachers, Chinese students are there to work as agents of China. It's a Trojan horse of modern words. Biggest Trojan horse is Confucius Institute. And in Pakistan, people, those who are opposing the local government and who are unhappy with China, they have realized that the best target they have is Chinese citizens, and especially these Confucius Institutes. So I think the first casualty of China, you are going to see not only in Pakistan, in other countries, is going to be Confucius Institutes, because other countries are realizing, the CIA, FBI, the British Conservative Party's Human Rights Commission, they have submitted written reports to their parliaments that Confucius Institutes are spying agents, they are saboteurs, and they are something to be dealt with very seriously. So I see this is what is happening in Pakistan is a new trend, and in Pakistan it is going to, otherwise it is going to become a trend. That is why China has brought back all its teachers. They understand where they are vulnerable. So I look at it that this is a trend, and in India we have 4 institutes. This is which are working purely almost as parallel embassies or agents. We have so many Chinese journalists stationed in India. In Srinagar, a accredited reporter, a Kashmiri of Xinhua, is stationed in Srinagar. Do we have those freedoms? Do our reporters have a chance to visit Xinjiang or Tibet or South Mongolia? They don't get freedom. So we have to now, I think, focus on, India should also focus on Confucius Institutes, on the media approach. China is having free hand in India. So what is happening in Pakistan, India should learn it as a lesson.
All right, Ambassador Vora, do you see the Shahbaz Sharif government, acting a little differently vis-a-vis how Imran Khan behaved, with the Chinese government? He was toe-to-toe in whatever decision the Chinese took. Do you see Shahbaz Sharif being his own man?
La plus ça change, plus c'est le même. The more it changes, the more it is the same. Who else is their friend? Where will they go? They've merely swapped the United States for China. Whatever you say about the West, the IMF, the World Bank, etc., and all these so-called liberal democracies, at least their terms, when they loan money, however harsh they are transparent, open, you know what you are getting into, and they don't grab your land if you're not able to pay back your loans, as the Chinese are pretty good at doing. Professor Nalapa, do you feel that the Chinese, because of their military involvement, will be around for a long time? I don't know if you remember a character called Shah Raza Pahlavi of a country called Iran. his ambassador in Washington used to go dancing with the president's wife or with Elizabeth Taylor or whoever. And then suddenly, like that, overnight, that entire relationship crashed. The same happened between the former USSR and its quasi-colonies. So this doesn't take long. When the local domestic scenario changes, then your external chap who's seen as the cause of all your troubles is booted out overnight. Mr. Malhotra, to respond to your question very honestly and frankly, I'm surprised that the honeymoon has lasted as long as it did. Chinese workers, as you know, there was these characters working in the dam who were killed, and China compelled Pakistan to borrow more money from China in order to pay $29 million or $30 million as compensation. And these three teachers from the Confucius Institute probably will get $10 million each as compensation, while Pakistan will again borrow from China to pay their families. But no, they cannot at this point of time do without China. They have not a friend in the world. So I don't think Mr. whatever his name is, the Badmash Sharif, not Sharif, whatever, the Sharif fellow is going to, I think he's going to continue with his Badmashi, and he's going to go on being friends with China until and unless we see China telling Pakistan, buddy, the cost of keeping you as my concubine far exceeds the benefits.
Professor Nalapad, how do you respond to the concern that was brought out by General Katoch that if there is an implosion in Pakistan, it's not going to be the army, it's not going to be the terrorists, it's the people who would want to cross over that could turn out to be the biggest threat. In our theory as well, this is not going to turn out well for Pakistan. It could also become a huge issue for India as well.
I quite agree with General Katoch, and I think it's very important to basically ensure that we do in large sections of the border, we protect it in a much more effective way, because these people are not going to enter India, many of them. A lot of them are going to be from the province that supplies the bulk of the Pakistan military, and they will try to enter our own Punjab, and they are not coming out of any friendship with India. They are coming because frankly, a lot of the policies that they supported have led to disaster. And so they're coming temporarily to India. And naturally, the old habits of thought will not go. And they will try and create the same havoc in India. So I think General Katoch is absolutely right. And that we need to start preparing for this kind of an implosion now itself. And an explosion of migration. We were completely unprepared by the Bangladesh situation, and we cannot be equally unprepared, frankly, as to what is happening now before our eyes in Pakistan. Look, the fact is that Ambassador Vora is quite right in a legal and technical sense, in the sense that Pakistan as a sovereign country can repudiate and walk away from any commitment that it has. The question is realpolitik. The question is force, and does it have the force level? And it does not. But the question is, until we have, for example, the Quad as a genuine security mechanism, as a mechanism that is really there to protect the Indo-Pacific, not just in the words of professors and, if I may say so, commentators and news anchors, but in the words of actual policy makers, that unless it is there to offer a guarantee of support, it is going to be difficult for Sri Lanka, for example, to get out of some of the absurd commitments that it has made on Hambantota, for example. It is going to be difficult for a future government in Myanmar, which will hopefully be a civilian government, to get away from some of the commitments made during the time of the military and which have had to be continued reluctantly by the civilian government. It's going to be very difficult. And in the same thing as far as Pakistan is concerned. So first, our effort has got to be, as General Katoch correctly says, ring-fencing ourselves from this kind of an expected explosion of unwelcome migration, because the attitudes of those people are definitely going to be such as created the problem in Pakistan, and they will try and spread that problem in India, which thankfully we don't have. But more importantly, ensuring that there is a security architecture that can confront China and very importantly, that can encourage countries to do away with some of the completely unfair and colonial era conditions that the Communist Party of China has imposed upon them. This is something we have been saying on this channel for many years, and I'm repeating it now. And I end with what Ambassador Vohra said. Absolutely, India and the West are natural allies. In fact, I'm surprised that there are so many irrational people in India who see the West as almost a worse enemy than the communist Chinese. I can't understand it. Quite frankly, I can't understand the thinking. We are natural allies, but the problem is we are both countries where we have a lot of dysfunctional thinking on policy, a lot of dysfunctional policies, and a lot of disinformation and misinformation about each other. So the Quad has got to be a genuine security alliance, and yes, there has got to be protection of the border in a much better way than has happened so far.
Absolutely. General Katoch, how long can this status quo continue for Pakistan? If they do end up in a nosedive when it comes to their economy, there is going to be a substantial issue with Pakistan. At least Sri Lanka has tourism to rely on. What is Pakistan going to do if there is no China?
Vineet, I think Pakistan is in very, very serious trouble because besides all the other problems which they have got, which have been enumerated time and again, they are having something which which nobody in the world will be able to handle. They are having a very serious water crisis. You see, they just don't they have mismanaged their water resources tremendously. And I don't think there is anything which they can do to really pull back the clock, so to say. So, so we are going to have, on top of the economic woes of water crisis and the problems of terrorism which continue to flood the country. We may very well see a Pakistan in which it will be something akin to civil war. Now, in that sort of a situation, I think the army will have to take over because I can't see any other institution taking over the country. So it is going to be a military mullah nexus, which we should be prepared to deal with at least. I mean, at least start thinking about what happens if such a scenario comes in, because Pakistan is a failed state. It is no more a failing state, it is a failed state. And increasingly, day by day, those trends are coming out. So we are seeing those fizziparious tendencies. In my view, if Pakistan breaks into 3 or 4 pieces, it should be something which we should encourage. I mean, it is not something which will hurt the security establishment here. It is not something which will work against India's interests. A strong, united Pakistan has always worked against India's interests. So now let us look at a broken Pakistan, which has been splintered into 3 or 4 pieces. And I think that may be a much more viable option, even for governance structures within Pakistan. In the long run, that will be the best thing for the people of Pakistan. It is not something which is a bad thing. And it will keep the Punjabi population, which has really run riot over the years, under control. But for India, I think we need to protect our borders very, very strongly. I'm totally with Professor Madhav Nalpat as far as the Quad is concerned. The West is our friend. Russia is also our friend. So, we cannot exchange friendship of one with the other. We'll be friends with both sides. Our interests are multifarious. So it is not going to be a either or situation when India chooses its friendship. But China is going to be our threat. Our main threat is China, and that is something which we have to work for, to see that we keep the Chinese at bay as far as our eastern borders are concerned, and we keep them under control as far as the Indian Ocean and the Indo-Pacific area is concerned. Vineet.
Right. Mr. Kranti, how prudent is it for China as well to continue working the way they have been working with Pakistan and also continue to lose their own citizens?
For China, of course, what China expects and what Pakistan expects, these are 2 different things. China has been so far getting what it wanted in Pakistan. Things have been going throughout in favor of China in every way. It is only recently that people in Balochistan and other areas, they have started realizing that whatever China is gaining is mainly at the cost of these people. So that is why you will find a young woman, an educated woman, she blasts herself against the Chinese, and as our friend just now said, it was not an Islamic kind of action, as we see jihadis blowing themselves. It is a very nationalistic action by a Baloch woman. So, now things are changing. China can still afford keep on doing what is doing in Pakistan because it is gaining throughout. Even if Chinese die, it is Pakistan who is borrowing money from China to pay compensation to the dead Chinese. Sorry. It is for Pakistan now to think whether they can survive or not. They have already paid very heavily. Their economy is destroyed. Their political system is so badly shredded that if they don't take a national approach, if they don't start reviewing their relation with China, then China is going to work as a siphon, which is taking away Pakistan's blood. So this is if there are any sensible Pakistanis left in the Pakistani establishment, whether it is political establishment, military establishment, or their academia or the civil society, I think they will have to think again if they want to keep Pakistan as one piece and surviving. They will have to revise their relations with China. Otherwise, I see that what happened to Sri Lanka very soon, worse is going to happen to Pakistan. And as General Katoch just now, said that it can happen. Pakistan explode into pieces. So I think this is for Pakistanis and Pakistan to review their relations with China.
All right, definitely a time for reviewing relationship with Pakistan because more or less, even in terms of cost effectiveness, this is a deal which is not working out for China.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.